just discovered this subreddit today, which reminded me of something that happened to me in 2008. This was a huge thing to my friends and family, and I didn't really talk about it back then as it scared the fuck out of me. But it was a while ago, and it is a really well-known story about among myself and my friends and family. But I think I might as well share it, as it is admittedly fucking terrifying. I was living with my parents and sister in Brisbane, Australia at the time. I remember my dad just had got his box tool, but only the TV in the lounge room turned to a box. And I really wanted to somehow get the cable into my room without paying $99 or whatever for a new box. So Dad one day went out and bought an AV transmitter. It was basically plug this tiny box into cable TV in the lounge room, and it would transmit a video signal to the receiver connected to the TV in my room. So one Saturday night, I decided to do it. My younger sister, at 16 at the time, was the only other person upstairs in the room. My room was downstairs. I opened the box and connected it up. At first, I was going back and forth, trying to get the cables right, trying to get the channel right, etc., but no luck. Until I found something. I remember just sitting there, something started buzzing in. This is where things started to feel like a horror movie. I remember thinking, oh, here we go, and waiting to see the picture coming clearly. But as it started buzzing in, I remember that this whole time the cable setup top box wasn't even on. And that's why it wasn't working this entire time. But why was I getting a signal? It seemed to hit me all at once. As I realized the box was off, the picture fuzzed in, and I saw a bed. I freaked the fuck out, as at first I thought it was my bed. I had recently seen Saw 2, and I remember that scene where she turns on the TV and it's camera filming her in her apartment. That was the first thing I thought of. I sprinted upstairs to my sister, absolutely terrified. I told her to come down and take a look. She came down and we both realized that it was my bed. We didn't know whose bed it was, or how I was getting the signal. Obviously, it was the AV receiver picking up a camera signal. We were just so confused as to who or what it was for. Eventually, my parents came home, and we concluded that it would have to be our neighbor or someone living close by for us to be receiving the signal. We waited around 6 p.m., and then someone came into the room. My dad recognized it as one of our neighbors. We still didn't know what the camera was for, but we assumed it had to do something with fidelity. Either his wife or he had set it up to watch the other and see if they were cheating. Either this or it was to tape themselves having sex. We entertained the idea that he was a murderer and would film himself murder people in his room just to freak each other out. We'd always make jokes about how one night we'll turn it on and it'll just be his face with a clown and makeup on, staring at the camera waving, and then him walking out of the bedroom with a knife. This never happened, but what did happen was still super creepy. We connected to the signal for about a week, but after a few days, its novelty kind of wore off. We felt a bit weird watching it, and it just resigned to the explanation that it was just to catch his wife cheating, until one day we turned it on and realized what we had discovered. Our neighbors were having a bunch of renovations done to their house. During the weekdays, they'd be out, and there would be workers at the place pretty much all day. It had been like this for about a month. We started watching the feeds, and we saw a man walk into their room. It was the plumber that had been there regularly for the renovations. We didn't think anything of it until he started opening drawers. I called out to my mom, and we started watching it. We started to get in the wife's underpants and sniffing them, doing all that creepy shit. At first, we were like, oh my god, how embarrassing. He's being filmed. Will they never see this somehow? But then what happened next was truly terrifying. He slowly walked over to the camera and looked right down at the fucking lens. We were convinced that he knew we were watching. Mom immediately called Dad. I kept watching. He started fiddling with it, and then he put it back down. I told Mom that I didn't think he knew that we were watching, but he's definitely the guy that put the camera there. Dad came home, and by this time the plumber had left. Much to Mom's pleading, Dad went over to the neighbors to tell them what we saw. Mom wanted to completely stay out of it and was terrified, understandably. When we told the neighbors, they had no idea what we were talking about. They allowed Dad to go up into the room, and what he found was an installed device in the wall that was designed to monitor water usage, which was completely normal at the time, as Brisbane had been hit with a drought recently and there was a lot of water restrictions. Still is now, I think. The plumber had installed this into the wall, but had fitted a camera behind it into the wall to watch the bed. Immediately, they called the police, who came over and conducted an investigation. For the next week or so, we didn't hear much about it. I spent most of the time just telling my friends, showing them pictures, but truthfully, my whole family was scared every night. It was just creepy thinking that we could have stuff like this sitting in our house. Chances are we didn't, but it was still really scary. After a couple weeks, my mom was speaking to the wife next door and asked what happened all about it. The wife said that the police found out he would at nights come to our street and sit in his car, which had really tinted windows, and watch them on his laptop. When my mom told me about this, I got the biggest shivers. The reason is, besides the obvious of a creepy dude sitting in his car watching people through a hidden camera, was because at multiple nights, when I had driven home late with my girlfriends or walked home drunk after a night out, I remember seeing a station wagon. Don't know if that's what they're called out outside of Australia, but it's like a big hitchhike car. It's about 30 miles down the street from our house. It was never there during the day, always at night. I'd always walk past it in my reflection in the windows, assuming no one was inside. I was always so confused by whose car it was, but literally never thinking it was anything. It still scares me so much that it was this creepy fucking plumber sitting back in there on a laptop watching a hidden camera stream in front of my neighbors. Anyway, that's my story. It's all true, and it still creeps me out to this day. But my friends and I still have a good laugh about it. Number 2. I'm 19 and I live in a rural area just with my mom and my older sister. We have a farm. Usually I go out back and do most of the work myself, but my uncle and older cousin work here too. They just don't live with us. They're about a 20-minute drive away. There are no houses around us, just long stretches of fields and open land. My mom handles the easier tasks and the business/financial sides of things. My sister works in the city. She has an office job and usually comes home late. One night I was outside fixing the porch light and my sister had pulled into the driveway of her car. Going going by how late it was and the fact she looked tired, I figured that she had a shitty work day, so I left her alone. When I went inside after I found her talking to her mom in hushed tones, I asked what happened and my sister told me that there was a car following her on the way home. This car apparently had been following her all week. That's why she was so late. She took a bunch of wrong turns to dodge him. Apparently they usually would just follow her for a short while and then turn away, but this time they were tailing her most the entire drive. My mom advised her to inform the police. I supported that. My sister is capable and all, but she's also too nice sometimes, and she frequently finds herself in some situation with creepy dudes. All of her exes have been assholes and stalkers. She's too trusting of people. Unfortunately, she forgot to copy down the license plate number of the car, so she gave the police a description of it. A light blue sedan, older. They told her to call the police if she noticed the car again, and that was it. A couple of days went by and she was fine each time. The car apparently stopped following her. Then, this past Wednesday, there was a package delivered to our front doorstep. It was a shoebox, a video cassette. I saw it first because I was heading out to do work and I popped it into the old VCR. Turns out it's this weird surveillance tape in front of our house. It starts when my sister leaves and stops when she's back. I showed it to her when she woke up. She said it was taken the day before she called the police about the car. Going by the weather in her clothes, it was really rainy that day. Obviously, she was freaked out. We all were. She and my mom stayed inside while I got to check where the video was recorded. It was pretty far from my house, zoomed in the time. On the edge of an open field, there was no trace of a camera or tripod. Because it was rainy the day the video was recorded, any marks in the dirt and footprints had been washed away by the time I went out to check. My sister called the police again and they asked her to bring the tape in. They said they couldn't do anything because the tape wasn't recorded on our property and there was no direct threat. Except for the fact that the person who sent it was clearly doing it to try to taunt us. A couple days later, yesterday, there was another tape. Same thing. I went out to check if there was anything left. There wasn't. We went to the police again. Same thing. I really don't know what to do. but I hope it stops for everyone's sake.